Hello there, Booktube. I thought I'd come online and have a little bit of a chat about books, for a change of pace, shall we? So, I thought it would be a nice time to actually discuss a series of books rather than just discuss what we're going to read. So, let's do a series overview. As you can tell by the title, this is a series overview of the First Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Now, what's to be said about Joe Abercrombie's work? He is the master of grimdark. He is well known as the master of grimdark now. He has a certain way with words, and he manages to craft characters and storylines that will really draw you in. There's a reason he's well loved in the community at the moment. So, I want to push the series a little. And I know it's already fairly popular, but why not give it a bit more love? Because, a decent series deserves to have a little bit more love. So, first of all, I'm just going to say, can we take a moment to acknowledge... Now, I know I hate this in most reviews, because every review goes on and on about how gorgeous the covers are. But can we just take a moment to acknowledge that the kind of reflective leaf on the cover there is really, really nicely done. It's got a texture to the cover. There's a slight emboss on the words. The spines match. And the entire series is like this. So there's the first one. Here's the second. Just nice stony grey. And then the third, which has an almost burnt paper lava feel to it, but it's still very fitting. They are extremely satisfying to have these sitting on a shelf. They look fantastic. Now remember that books are to be read, but 99% of the time they're sitting on your shelf, so aesthetics do matter. So you want them to look good. You want them to be a nice piece to have on your shelf, so that they can make you feel good. You don't just want all the books to be plain. Like, one of the worst things that I've got on my shelf is I have two Dostoevsky books, and they're both plain red spines with white text on them. It is so disheartening. I don't want to display them because they look horrible. But yeah, it's one of those things where looks do matter a little bit. So, let's go on to the book itself, though, because the cover is just the cover. What we have with Joe Abercrombie's work is an exploration of grimdark that is not just grim for the sake of grim. He has horrible things happen and dark elements in his stories. It can be very trying, it can be disturbing at times. But unlike a lot of other books that attempt grimdark, it's not edgy for the sake of edgy. It's not just being teenage in its approach, where everything is edgy just because that's what teenagers want. They want to be rebellious. It's not doing that, and none of the scenes feel that they're placed there for no reason. There's no gratuitousness to it. It's disturbing, but that's about it. It feels like it's earned its disturbingness. So, the first book, The Blade itself, is one of those books it's hard to sell because nothing happens in it. It's almost entirely just a character study. There's very little actual plot, but the characters are extremely interesting, and you get a sense of their inner workings, their inner mind. Logan Ninefingers is supposed to be your main character. That's the person you're supposed to be following. That's the impression you get from reading it. But honestly, Glocker takes the cake in this. It doesn't matter what happens. Everyone seems to just gravitate to Glocker, and there's good reason. He is a hateful, evil bastard. But at the same point, you kind of end up on his side. You kind of want to see him not necessarily succeed, but you want to see things go his way to some extent, and that's the markings of a well-written character. So yeah, I would say The Blade itself is it's a good one if you want character-driven work, and you can't skip over it. I definitely don't skip over it. What I would say is that if you can get into that, once you get to Before They're Hanged, you'll find that everything just kind of falls into place. All of the character work that was built up in the first book is paid off, and then some in this book. So you get a good sense that it's going somewhere, and then by the time we get to the third book, The Last Argument of Kings, everything has been twisted and turned to such a degree that you have such a level of atmosphere and immersion that you can appreciate why the first book took so long to work on its character building. Now, for Glocker, who's basically a torturer, who does horrific things and is very hateful. For you to be on his side for as long as you are in these books, it's a testament to the great writing. It's got some of the political intrigue that you might expect from other books. If you're used to the writings of George R.R. Martin, you're going to enjoy what Joe Abercrombie brings to the table, because it's similar without being the same. It's got a similar tone, it's got a similar feel. There's a lot of greyness to the characters, which George does as well, but it doesn't have the depth of political intrigue, the multitude of dozens and dozens of character perspectives. But at the same point, it doesn't need that because it's focusing on a different thing. So I think that it's a nice alternative, and it prioritises very different perspectives. So yeah, that's what I would say. Joe Abercrombie, one of the defining writers in modern fantasy at the moment. Definitely recommend. Now you're wondering why the video hasn't stopped, haven't you? Aren't you? Because it hasn't stopped. You can see below that there's more minutes to this review, and yeah, there's a reason for that. That review, it's pretty standard, wasn't it? Pretty good review. What you'd expect for Booktube. I have not read a single fucking word of this series. Not fucking word. I have never opened these books. I haven't got the faintest fucking clue what I was recommending. I've heard enough recommendations for Joe Abercrombie that I could piece together. Enough that I could create a passable review. And this is what this video is really about. I have been saying from the start that I want to make Booktube videos and I would like to make reviews. I could easily, very fucking easily, create reviews every week for a new book. There'd be no issue with that. I could pull that off. I've already proven that I don't have the faintest clue what happens in these books. I genuinely have no clue what happens. Like, I know that the first book is apparently very character driven and fairly slow. I have no idea if it pays off in the second or third. I've never read them. People who I respect have told me it does. I'm parroting the same few little sound bites everyone always says about those books. That's what I'm doing. And I also wasted a lot of time discussing the covers, which, again, they are gorgeous covers. They genuinely are gorgeous covers. Like, these are one of the few series of books that I feel have exceptionally good covers. Because on Booktube, every fucking book is claimed to have a gorgeous cover. I think these actually do have gorgeous covers, which is a rarity. Right? I'm not saying that, for example, the book I'm currently reading doesn't have a nice enough cover, but that's not a gorgeous cover. It's a fine cover, but it's not gorgeous. It's not It's not special. It's just a cover. It's a nice cover. No issue with the artist who did that. They did a fine job. But it's not a gorgeous cover. It doesn't stand out. It doesn't make me go, ooh, that's different. Abercrombie's do. And the cover artist should be very, very pleased with that, because it's a very minimalist style. Like, there's very little actual art. It's just textures. But it's very, very well done. But that aside, I wasted a lot of the review by talking about the cover. And I did that because that's what every reviewer on Booktube does. They talk about the cover ad nauseum, because the cover is something that you can look at once and go, I now have an opinion on it. You don't have to have read a fucking word. I know who the character Glocker is. And I know because other people have mentioned him, and the things I said about him are verbatim what other people have said in other reviews. It would be so easy for me to put out a new review every week of a book I've never read. I could look up a couple of reviews on YouTube, take some of the things they say, look up a couple of text reviews, take out a couple of sentences, switch them around, push them back together again, and add in a couple of little bits that I've gleaned from, reading the blurb at the back of the book. If I really, really wanted to, I could flick through and read a couple of pages to get a sense of what the pros are like. It would be really easy to do this. And in fact, it would be so easy to do this, I'm not entirely convinced that booktubers don't. How many booktubers actually review a book and tell you enough about the book that you know whether or not you want to read it? How many reviews are actually in depth? How many times have you heard someone describe a book and they couldn't tell you a fucking thing about it? This thing that they've apparently spent 15 hours reading. Can't tell you a thing. Excuse me. Whoa. I do apologise. But yeah, they can't tell you a damn thing. Why is that? It's because a lot of people on Booktube don't read. They don't read books at all. I really, really should have pressed mute on Discord, shouldn't I do apologise. Yeah, they don't read at all. What they do is they skim, or they play an audiobook in the background, and then they fake it, and they have enough information that they can give an overview. An overview is not a review. They can give you a brief description and a couple of keywords. The kind of thing that you could get almost anywhere. That's not really criticism. And that's why I've still not put out any reviews. Because a review takes time and effort. And it should actually take the book and look at it with depth. Right? I have read The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, and I think it's a flawed book. I have given a very, very basic review in parts across multiple videos and on Goodreads, where you can get my basic ideas on the book. But I've not put out a video on it. I've written a few, but I've not put out the video. And the reason I didn't put the video out was because I had too much to say. I would have been there for hours talking about this book. It's a very long book for a start, but also I wanted to put 2 or 3 different videos up where I discussed a little bit of the book in depth. Like, I wanted to, and again, this will go into some level of spoilers for Way of Kings, but not to a great degree. I wanted to discuss the concept of suicide brought up by Callan's story, because the way he approaches depression and the potential to commit suicide and how he wrestles with it throughout the book is very, very well done. It's one of the highlights of the book, in my opinion. It's a very interesting thing to throw into a fantasy world, and I wanted to talk about it. And I wrote that video and never did record it. But that script that I wrote, back when I was fully scripting my videos, would have easily been a 20-minute video. Easily. And that's the thing. If you're going to review a book, you can talk for hours on that book. You can, because you've got so much to say. Because any book worth its salt, any book along this size, where we're talking, what, 600-700 pages, something like that? Yeah, almost 600 pages, 535 on that. The others are both bigger, so probably over 600 for the other two. 600 pages of a standard fantasy book. You're looking at least 15 hours. For me, that's closer to 20 hours reading time, because I'm a slow reader. And if you claim you can read it faster than that, you're a liar. Yeah, 15 hours reading time. If you're really, really fast, maybe 12. If you say you can read it in 6 hours or something stupid like that, you're a fucking liar. Stop it. So yeah, it's a long book, but not that long. It's not like the short books I was talking about in my last video, where we were looking at less than 100 pages for some of them, or less than 200 pages for the average one that I was talking about in that. We're talking 600 pages, so fairly long. Not massive, not Way of Kings big, but big. You could easily take like a 3-4 hour section of that book and make a half-hour discussion about it, surely. The things brought up, the characters that you could talk about. But no one ever seems to do that. No one actually does a deep dive anymore, where they talk about the books as an actual discussion. All they do is they give 5 minutes where they waste a minute or two describing the cover. They will talk briefly about the outline of the story. They'll mention some vague statements about the writing style or the main character. All stuff you could figure out from reading the blurb and spending 5 minutes reading a couple of pages just to get an idea of the prose. Booktubers fake their reviews. Prove me wrong. I firmly believe they fake them. Some of them don't. Some of them are honest. Some of them have nothing really to hide. But some of these channels have over 200,000 subscribers now. Some of them have over 400,000 subscribers. The ad revenue, the sponsorship deals, they're worth a lot of money. And don't think that even the big ones, like the channels that you think are respectable, aren't in it for the money. Even people like Daniel Green, whose channel is, in my opinion, one of the better Booktube channels out there. He has entertaining content, he's got a great camera presence, a real good chemistry, he seems to know his stuff, and he does talk at least in some depth. I do believe he's actually read at least most of the books he's talking about. The thing is, he'll also do things like a Raid Shadow Legends advert. Raid pay thousands per video. For him to say that he's playing this deep, gritty and gripping fantasy world when he's not, we know what Raid Shadow Legends is. It's a microtransaction-filled gacha app designed to addict people with gambling problems, so that they can pass more and more difficult to complete autocomplete battles in a very, very poor quality and trope-filled fantasy world that has vague ideas of fantasy races, and is probably no more complex than what a 5-year-old would come up with if you gave them a cartoon adaptation of Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and told them to build something vaguely fantasy. It's pathetic, frankly. And that's why I haven't put out reviews. Because when I put out a review, I want it to be decent. When I put out a review, I want it to actually mean something. Incidentally, I've been working on a few. and I really do want to put them out soon. If I wasn't so restricted in the time that I have to record and I could actually keep to a timetable, I would have them out already. But I'm getting better, and I'm starting to get things under control. I think this is the point where I can legitimately put out videos on a regular. So I'll see you on Monday for my next weekly reading vlog, and possibly midweek for a review if possible. I'll see what I can put out. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I've heard this is really good. I'll let you know. I'm going to read this soon. It's right at the top of my TBR. Until then, bye.